Welcome to this presentation. We're going to be talking about how to deliver great Wi-Fi presentations. So this is designed for the speakers at Wi-Fi Trek, but I think it'll benefit anyone who has to give a technical presentation at all, but certainly anyone who has to give Wi-Fi technical presentations. And I think you'll see why as we go along. My name is Tom Carpenter. I'm the CTO at CWNP. And of course, CWNP is on Twitter at CWNP. I'm on Twitter at CarpenterTom. This presentation will be archived on CWNP TV so that any of the speakers unable to view it live will be able to view it on the archive. And also, it'll be available to anyone in the community that wants to improve their presentation skills. So, of course, Wi-Fi Trek is coming up in San Diego in just a couple of months now, and this is all about making sure that our speakers are well prepared for Wi-Fi Trek so that they can give a great presentation that will impact the audience and provide value to our attendees. Now, the agenda, we're going to talk about presentation flow. I'll give you a couple of examples, and then we'll go over some keys to a great conference presentation. So first of all, let's talk about the presentation flow. Here's what I've done. I've decided to take the way 802.11 wireless networks work, at least sort of, and help you to remember the flow of a good presentation based on that. So this is for a short presentation. There's going to be a preamble, a header, a body, a CRC, and an acknowledgement. Now, I'll explain what all of these mean. Right now, I'm just giving you the flow for your presentation so that you can understand this. So the preamble, the header, the body, the CRC, and the ACK. And I think it'll make sense to you as we go along. If it's a long presentation, oh my, there's more. So there's still a preamble, but now there's also a PHY header as well as the MAC header, a body, CRC, another MAC header, body, CRC, another MAC header, body, CRC, and then a block acknowledgement. In other words, we're pretending that we're doing a little bit of different things together that are in 802.11. Basically, we're kind of doing aggregated frames and block acknowledgements and bringing all this together to help you understand it. So this is all about making it memorable about the pieces of a presentation. So let me explain what these parts are all about. So first of all, there's the preamble. A preamble is defined according to the dictionary as a preliminary or preparatory statement, an introduction. Now, this is the definition of a preamble. When it comes to Wi-Fi, the preamble is all about syncing the radios, right? So we can make sure that the radios are synchronized so that the receiver can receive the transmission. Well, the preamble of your presentation provides synchronization with the audience. It gets them in sync with you. It gets them listening to you, focused on you, ready to hear from you. So it gets their attention, it builds rapport, and it engages listening. This is also called the presentation opener. So here's the thing. The preamble is how you open or start your presentation. And a lot of people get up to give a presentation and they start their presentation by saying, what we're going to talk about is, oh, no. That's your PHY header or MAC header. We'll get to that in a minute. Don't start with what we're going to talk about is. Start with an opener. Don't leave it to whim or chance. Plan your preamble. Plan what you're going to say. So an opener can be a joke. An opener can be something as simple as getting up there and saying, hey, how many of you are liking the conference so far? Let's give a hand to all the people that are working on the conference and making this all happen. That can be great, but don't do that if the person right before you did it. So you have to do that only if other people haven't been doing it, right? You can open with a joke. You can open with a fact. And it's good to open with a fact that some of the people won't know, or even better, most of the people in the room won't know. So the key here is have a planned opening. This isn't something unique to Wi-Fi conference presentations or technical presentations. This is a presentation best practice that you start with a preamble or what's usually called an opener, a joke, a fact, a statistic, a story, an illustration, something that gets attention, builds rapport. It allows you to connect with that audience and engages their listening. You're getting in sync with your audience. Whether it's a short or long presentation, you're going to always have the preamble. Now, for a long presentation, you need we're going to call it the phi header. Okay. So we're just going to call it the phi header. This is the agenda of topics because it's a long presentation. You probably have multiple topics you're going to cover in the category of your discussion. So the 802.11 phi includes a length parameter. So that's why we're borrowing this, right? So it's kind of like borrowed from the length parameter. You're letting them know what's going on. When a presentation is more than 15, 20 minutes, it begins with a plan for the presentation. It's like landmarks along the journey. Remember when you were a kid and you're riding along in the car and you're continually saying, are we there yet? Are we there yet? How much longer? Are we there yet? How much longer? Why is that? It's because you haven't learned the landmarks yet. Have you noticed that when you go to a place multiple times, the journey to that destination seems shorter the more often you go? We know why that is. It's because without even planning it or thinking about it, we've built landmarks along the way. Oh, there's that building, there's that water tower, there's that block of odd-looking trees. Whatever it is, these landmarks along the way. And so we've got a whole bunch of little short journeys along the long journey. And it makes the long journey seem shorter psychologically. And so, yes, you're going to build landmarks in a long presentation by giving them the multiple topics you're going to go through, because now they know, okay, we move to the second topic. We're making progress on this journey. And there's none of this, are we there yet? How much longer? Are we there yet? How much longer? Longer presentations need this. So I would say certainly anything in excess of 30 minutes, but even in excess of 20 minutes can use this. Yes, I know the phi or PLCP header is always there, but for this analogy, we're just using it for long presentations, okay? Now, the header, this is there in all the presentations. So if it's a short presentation, you probably have one primary topic, right? So you just need the Mac header. You don't need the phi header. I know you do with 802.11, but our analogy is not perfect, okay? So what you need here is just a topic introduction. If it's a long presentation, each topic should be introduced. It should have a header, right? In long presentations, each topic's introduced, not just performed. In short presentations, it's a narrow topic that you're focusing on. And so this is the intro to the entire presentation. So you're literally going to go from your preamble to your Mac header, right? So you're going to do your opening and then you're going to go into your topic introduction. The key here is in a longer presentation, don't just dive into the next topic. Don't just perform it. Set the stage for it. And this can be a simple transition like, okay, now that we understand X, we're going to move on to look at Y. Or it can be the next thing that we need to discuss in order to understand the big picture that we're talking about today is Y. So it's just a transition into that next component. Now then you have the body. Okay, this is for both short and long presentations, it's the body of a topic. So for short, it's your whole presentation. For long, it's one of the topics in the long presentation. It's the topic content. You're going to deliver what you promised. If you say, I'm going to teach you how WPA3 works, then I want to get into that and talk about how WPA3 works. Now, if I'm talking about WPA3, I've probably got multiple topics, right? Long presentation, multiple topics. I'm going to talk about simultaneous authentication of equals, going to talk about the different levels of encryption, whatever. Those are my topics. But here in the body, I'm just talking about SAE, if that's the topic at hand right now. So I'm going to deliver what I promised. I'm going to teach them what it is and how it works. Remember, a great Wi-Fi presentation includes nuggets beyond the norm. So if all you do is say what everyone else has already said about your topic, it's not going to end up being a great Wi-Fi presentation. Dig for those nuggets. Look for those juicy things that maybe people don't know. It can be a very simple thing. Last year, for example, in my presentation at Wi-Fi Trek, I talked about the RX Phi start delay, the simple little parameter that is part of the algorithm that determines after I send a frame, how long do I wait before I retry that frame? Okay, simple thing, but the vast majority of Wi-Fi people have no idea there's a parameter in there that defines that. So by delivering some kind of a nugget like that, you give them that extra information, they feel like they're getting value from you. Make sure you include nuggets beyond the norm. Then you've got your CRC. So this is your topic summary. So short presentations, it's the summary of the presentation. Long presentations, it's the summary of a topic. So each topic should be summarized like a book chapter summary. It can be a bullet list, either just spoken or on screen. So you could say, so what we've learned about simultaneous authentication of equals is X, Y, and Z. Okay. In short presentations, it's the presentation summary before the takeaway or call to action. So long and short presentations both have either an acknowledgement or a block acknowledgement at the end, and that's the takeaway or call to action. This is your opportunity for the topic to ensure the audience received the correct information. Hence, we're borrowing CRC. Did you get what I said about X, Y, and Z? Here's the summary. Possibly we covered X, and this is why it's important to you. We covered Y, and this is why it's important to you, and so forth. So no more than a minute or so for a topic summary here. Then finally, we have the acknowledgement. This is for short presentations. So this is your topic takeaways or call to actions. So you use the ACK in your short presentation because you're just doing a takeaway or call to action on one major topic. Takeaways or calls to action are items that the audience can do something about. So tell them, go optimize your wireless LAN profile settings or evaluate your settings based on what we've discussed here today and see if there's some areas where you can tune that and get better performance out of your network. Disable low data rates. I just had to throw that in there. Improve wireless LAN design procedures. So the point is that we want to make sure that here we're giving them that information that says you can do something with what I've given you. In a short presentation, the ACK will be a very brief 1 to 2 minute portion of the presentation, not really long. You're just giving them some actions they can go and take based on what they learned from you. Now, then you have the block acknowledgement. This is for your long presentations. There's still a presentation takeaways or calls to action, but it takes the place of the ACK in a long presentation. Think of it like an aggregated frame, whereas a short presentation is a single frame. So the block ACK is longer than the ACK and maybe 3 to 4 or even 5 minutes long because you've got multiple topics, right, that you can call them to action on. So let's say, for example, you're talking about how to crack WPA pre-shared key passphrases. Then you might introduce the new vulnerability discovered, the PMKID crack. And one of the actions they can take is you can say, go and get the HCX tools and other tools, Hashcat and so forth, so that you can go through the process in a lab, see how it works and get an understanding for this. And that can be a call to action at the end of your long presentation. Now, let me give you an example then. Wi-Fi in the cold. So for the preamble, I might give a statistical fact. I might say, for example, I've had the opportunity to work on 13 Wi-Fi projects in Alaska in the last 2 years. And in that process, I've learned that cold can impact some things for outdoor Wi-Fi in those regions. In this presentation, I'm moving on to the FI header, I'm going to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. And you will, by the end of this presentation, be able to understand what the best practices are for implementing Wi-Fi in the cold. The first topic I'm going to talk to you about then is X. I'm at the MAC header now. When I'm dealing with X, I'm in the body. I'm going to go ahead and start talking about the content of this topic. And then with CRC, summary of challenges. So maybe I'm talking about challenges in cold environments, and then I give them the list of challenges. And then for the summary, I'm going to say, so remember, when you're deploying Wi-Fi in a cold environment, first of all, you want to make sure you don't freeze to death. Second of all, and I go through the list, right? And then I've got solutions to the challenges, and I go through the body, and then I've got my CRC. My summary of solutions might be, so make sure you wear thermal long underwear, whatever the solution is for the first problem, and then the second problem, and then the third. And then the takeaways, I could say to them, if you'll check out this website, they have great gear that you can purchase for working outdoors in the cold. I have found it to be very helpful to me. And you have this company and this company and this company that offers enclosures for the APs, etc., and so forth. So you can give them those takeaways for what they can do with it. And then here's a short example, all about the ACK, right? So for the preamble, I might open up with a joke. I can say, every now and then when I'm talking to my wife, I find myself saying to her after she says something to me that goes on for a little while, I simply say ACK. And then I realize, oh no, I'm a Wi-Fi geek. Okay, maybe not the best joke in the world, but you know what? It opens things up. And then I'm going to talk to you about the acknowledgement frame today and why that acknowledgement frame is so important. I'll tell you what's in it. I will tell you why you need to know about it. And I will tell you how you might do some analysis in relation to it to understand what's going on your network. There's my header. And then for my body, I do all about the ACK. And then I do a summary, which basically says, here's what I told you. And then for takeaways, I can say, when you go back, you can use the following filter in Wireshark in order to filter down to your acknowledgement frames. And you can look at those and analyze some of the things I've talked to you about today. Here's where you see the duration value so that you can determine what's going on in the frames leading up to the act, and etc. So I can go into some information about the acknowledgement frame. So those are some examples. So just remember, it's preamble, PHY header, MAC header, body, CRC, MAC header, body, CRC, MAC header, body, CRC, block acknowledgement for long presentations. For short presentations, it's preamble, MAC header, body, CRC, acknowledgement. Okay, so think about that. You know how Wi-Fi works. So think about that, because guess what? Wi-Fi works in a congested, disruptive communications environment, right? That's what a conference is. You've got hundreds of people, you've got noise and distractions around you. I need to make sure my message is getting through. So I'm going to borrow from Wi-Fi and do my presentation the way it works in a noisy, congested environment. Now, let me give you some keys to a great conference presentation. Number one, speak from experience. It's always best when you share your experience. And it's not just about theory. You're not just sharing information that anyone could share. You're giving them things you've learned. Share new information. Dig up those new nuggets about Wi-Fi. Don't just get up there and share the same thing or explain old information in a new way. Come up with your own analogies. Come up with your own illustrations that work well to help people understand the concepts. You can use a catchphrase, but don't overdo it. I wouldn't really encourage you to say that it will travel as far as you can throw a boat. That was something that came off the top of my head at last year's conference, but you could have a catchphrase, something similar to that you use throughout, but make sure you, in a long presentation, maybe you use it 4 or 5 times. In a short presentation, a couple of times. You probably don't want to overdo it. You do want to be technical. People at these conferences want the technical detail, but you want to be personal. The reality is that you don't have to get up there and talk in a radio voice. I'm not going to get up there and say, today, we're going to be talking about the future of Wi-Fi. In the future, wireless networks will be different than they are today. No, but be personal. Just be who you are. Talk the way you talk. But I would encourage you to energy it up a bit. So in other words, if I would normally talk to someone like this, if this is how I would tell someone how something works, then when I go to a conference to present, this is how I'm going to tell someone how something works. I'm just going to take it up a notch, give a little more energy to it so that it keeps their attention. So be yourself, give a little more energy when you're in front of a group than you might one-on-one. You can be funny if it's in you, but the big thing is always be professional. So don't attack other people or other vendors if you're a vendor or anything like that while you're giving a presentation. And be real. People like real. If you made a big mistake sometime and you learn from it, share that big mistake you made and what you learned from it. It's a great way to build rapport with the audience. Now, I want to wrap up by talking to you about lessons learned. So we did surveys on all of the speakers last year and got a lot of valuable feedback. So let me give you some lessons from that. Number one, don't cover what has been covered to death. So when something has been addressed at every wireless conference for the last 6 years, it's not the kind of thing you want to go back and rehash. Unless you can get a really good, novel, unique new spin on it, it's not something you want to do. So don't cover what's been covered to death. Don't deliver an identical presentation you've delivered at other Wi-Fi conferences, because guess what? It's probably online and many of the attendees already viewed it. Add something new. Even if it's just 2 or 3 slides or 2 or 3 topics or 2 or 3 portions of content, something that's new and unique there. And don't be boring. Boring is not about personality. So I'm not talking about you've got to get up there like Tom Carpenter and speak in that way that he talks, or you've got to get up there like some other presenter that maybe you look up to. You don't have to be a Tony Robbins. You don't have to go out and say, hey, everybody on your feet, clap your hands. Come on, let's get some energy in the room. Yeah, you don't have to do that. That's not what I mean by don't be boring. Boring is about content. And if you're covering what's been covered to death, if you're delivering an identical presentation you've delivered 1,000 times, that's boring. Because not only is it boring because they have seen it before, but even those who haven't seen it before, they're listening to you present something you've presented so many times that you can do it like a robot now. And so you may have lost energy for it. So include a nugget every 2 or 3 minutes that is new to you or exciting to you, because guess what? It's going to convert to energy. Do bring you to the table. People want to know you. They want to know your personality. They want to know your experiences. So make sure you include it in your presentation. Do provide proof if you are controversial. So if you're going to take a controversial stance and argue against a common way of thinking, you need to provide evidence that what you're saying is accurate. So if you say, everybody thinks this part of Wi-Fi works like this, they're wrong. Here's how it works. Go to the standard. Go to some driver dumps, something that you can use to prove that. Do talk about your expertise and not the expertise of others. So getting up and saying, as so-and-so says, if so-and-so's in the room, I'd rather hear from so-and-so. So don't talk about others' expertise. Talk about your own. And that's not to say we didn't learn something from someone. We've all learned stuff from all kinds of people. Most of my knowledge came from someone else. I didn't discover it all on my own, right? But yet I combined that knowledge together in ways that may be very different than what other people have. So that's my expertise. The way I have combined these things together and come up with new ways of thinking, new ways of understanding, etc. That's my expertise. That's what I want to bring to the table. So it's okay to quote somebody. It's okay to refer to them, but the meat of your presentation needs to be, you tell me what you know that I also need to know. I want to increase my expertise by siphoning off some of your expertise. And if you do that, you'll have a lot better presentation in the end.